Introduction to ISLM Plus Open Balance of Payment or Mundel Fleming Model. An economy that is open to international trade and investments will face different economic challenges from those of an economy that is closed. In a closed economy, traditional monetary and fiscal policies can be used to achieve the objectives in the short run. Given the macro, AS is equal to AD framework where AS is equal to Y, that is aggregate output. AD is equal to consumption plus investment plus government expenditure. Expansionary monetary policy influence is simple. Increase in money supply, decrease interest rate which increases consumption and investment, in result which increases aggregate demand. And same is the case with expansionary fiscal policy influence. Increase in government expenditure and decrease in tax rates increases government spending and consumption, which in result increases the aggregate demand. However, in an open economy, monetary and fiscal policies become messy since policymakers need to consider the open factors such as balance of trade and services, NX minus IM, and capital flow. So, we need to open up our standard macro AS is equal to AD model and assess how monetary and fiscal policies interact with the open factors in influencing the economic performance. For that, we have to learn one key model in economics, namely Mundel-Fleming model. The MF model is designed to help illustrate how three major sectors in the economy interact with each other in an open economy to achieve its equilibrium. Three major sectors are goods and services market. AS is equal to AD, that is, IS is a function of I and Y. Money market. MS is equal to MD, that is, LM is a function of I and Y. Balance of payment. Current account is equal to capital and financial account. CA is equal to CFA, that is, BP is a function of I and Y. Please note that all three sectors are a function of economic aggregate output or income Y on horizontal axis and interest rate I on vertical axis. Therefore, these three sectors can be represented on the same graph. And when these three sectors are balanced within the framework or dimensions of Y and I, then they generate the following relationship in the economy. Assume BP line to be horizontal. We will not get into its derivation. To make our analysis more focused on the policy issues in open economy, please note that I, that is, domestic equilibrium interest rate, ID, is equal to foreign equilibrium interest rate, IF. ID is equal to IF. Within this ISLM-BP framework, all three sectors intersect relative to I and Y. Please note that this equilibrium is like any other natural equilibrium that you see around, say, equilibrium of body, mind and various organs, equilibrium of air, water and resources, equilibrium of self-interest of people in various markets. Until some change occurs that shifts one of the curves, the ISLM-BP equilibrium will be consistent with all goods produced being sold, money demand equal to money supply, and a current account surplus equal to a capital account deficit. This model is also known as ISLM-BP model, where three major sectors of an economy, IS, goods market equilibrium, LM, money market equilibrium, and BP, equilibrium of current account and capital account in balance of payment. Simultaneously, determine its general equilibrium as the function of y and I. Case 1. Let us utilize the model to assess the efficacy of monetary and fiscal policies for open economies under fixed exchange rates regime. Let's first see case 1.1, that is, effectiveness of expansionary monetary policy in increasing output in an open economy under fixed exchange rate regime. If the domestic central bank increases the money supply, MS, then LM shifts to LM1, results in downward movement of domestic interest rate, which results in increase in aggregate output or income from Y to Y1. But the balance of payment market, BP, becomes unbalanced. This leads to capital flight, outflow of funds, since domestic interest rates, that is, ID, is less than foreign interest rate, that is, IF. Outflow of funds, sell domestic currency and buy foreign currencies, leads to a rapid depreciation of domestic currency. This increases exports. To maintain the fixed exchange rate system, the central bank has to sell its foreign currency reserves and buy the domestic currency. Buying the domestic currency reduces the money supply and shifts LM curve back from LM1 to LM, which results in increase in and fall in output from Y1 to Y. There is no gain for the economy of expansionary monetary policy. Thus, with fixed exchange rates, the domestic central bank is not free to conduct its monetary policy. Implication: fixed exchange rates bring in foreign investment. Example, no currency risk. However, this comes at a very high cost to the government, that is, ineffective monetary policy. Let's now see case 1.2, that is, effectiveness of expansionary fiscal policy in increasing output in an open economy under fixed exchange rate regime. With the increased government spending, IS shift to IS1, that is, C plus I plus G plus X shifts up, as a result of which aggregate output or income increases from Y to Y1. But again, BP becomes unbalanced since domestic interest rates, that is, ID, is greater than foreign interest rates, that is, ID is greater than IF. This leads to a surge of inflow of funds and appreciate the domestic currency. This decreases exports. To stop the domestic currency from appreciating, the central bank increases the money supply. This shifts LM to LM2. At this point, all three major sectors are balanced again or achieve the general condition of equilibrium with more aggregate output than was there in the initial equilibrium situation. That is, Y increases more. This outcome is significantly different than the outcome from the monetary policy. The fiscal policy has a strong effect on output and income and can be used to stimulate the domestic economy under fixed exchange rate regime. Implications: provides strong incentives for countries to increase deficit spending. Example, borrow when the economy is not performing well. Case 2. Let us utilize the model to assess the efficacy of monetary and fiscal policies for open economies under floating exchange rates regime. Let us first see case 2.1, that is, effectiveness of expansionary monetary policy in increasing output in an open economy under floating exchange rate regime. Suppose the central bank increases its money supply. This shifts LM to LM1, which results in downward movement in interest rate, as a result of which aggregate output or income rise and increases from point Y to point Y1. Again, balance of payment becomes unbalanced and leads to flow of funds out of the economy, since domestic interest rate, that is, ID, is less than foreign interest rate, that is, ID is less than IF. The outflow of funds leads to depreciation of the domestic currency. This increases exports. The increase in exports, net exports, shifts IS to IS1, which results in even more increase in aggregate output or income in economy from point Y1 to point Y2, and of course, in restoring the balance or equilibrium in balance of payment too. The economy gains even more. Implications: with floating exchange rates, a depreciation of the domestic currency can help the economy grow. Example, competitive devaluation. Let us now see case 2.2, that is, effectiveness of expansionary fiscal policy in increasing output in an open economy under floating exchange rate regime. With the increased government spending, IS shifts to IS1, which results in more aggregate output, that is, Y increases from Y to Y1. Again, balance of payment becomes unbalanced since domestic interest rates, that is, ID, is greater than foreign exchange rate, that is, ID greater than IF. This leads to the inflow of funds. The inflow of funds leads to an appreciation of the domestic currency. This will reduce the exports and increases imports. This shifts IS1 back to IS, as a result of which output falls from Y1 to Y. There is no gain for the economy. Implications: the fiscal power of government to manage their economy by tax and spending is diminished under the floating exchange rate system. We can summarize the discussion with the below mentioned table.